Hello backpackers, this is Juan from Juan Backpacks, and I'm here today to do a 300 plus, a lot of plus mile review of the Gossamer Gear LT5 carbon trekking poles. As light as a feather, light as a feather. So let's go ahead and dive into this review. So first off, I want to talk kind of like the stats, right? So these trekking poles, just the trekking poles without the basket, come in at 4.9 ounces a piece. Super light, super light. When you add these baskets in, what they call rock baskets, they're going to come in at about 5.1 or 5.2 ounces a piece. So again, super light carbon trekking poles. When you buy these, they're on their website for $195 right now as we speak. So they're on the pricey side. I usually wait until there's a sale, and I got these, I think, for around $150 on sale on their website. When you buy them, here's what you get. You get both the trekking poles that are carbon. You get the rock baskets for the end. That basically keeps the trekking pole from going deep into a rock crack, and then obviously having a chance of jamming and maybe snapping off. And then you also get two boots for on the ends of your trekking pole if you don't want those carbide tips exposed for some reason. Maybe you're putting them into your backpack, down into the pocket of your backpack, something like that, traveling with them. I rarely use them. So that's what you get. You can also buy snow baskets. And the cool thing is, these are carbon trekking poles. You can literally buy each one of these sections if you want to. If you break a section, you can buy the sections on the website to replace them if you do snap a section. And we'll talk a little bit about breakage towards the end of my review. So let's start at the handle and work our way down. The handle looks great. It's got ergonomic design. It's made of foam, but it looks like a cork. It's really soft and it feels really good. The shape of it is excellent, at least for my hands. On the palm side, you have some ridges to get good grip, which I find is very useful. They also have on the end, because they're weight conscious, a very minimal wristband that I always use when I'm using my trekking poles, because I want to make sure that I get full effect and full benefit of my trekking pole. And so you can actually, if you don't use them, you can take them off. Some people that are really focused on weight take that off, I guess, but you can do that. The shaft, like I said earlier, is divided into three sections. They're top, middle, and bottom. They are replaceable. The trekking poles use a twist lock. And if you go here, at the bottom one, it has a stop here, like a marked here. And every time, this bottom one gets set right to the same length every single time. And then the way that you adjust the centimeters, the length of the trekking pole is here, and it's measured out. So you can go from 105 centimeters on these particular trekking poles to a total of 130. And again, to keep you from extending this too far, there's a stop here to not let you go beyond 130 centimeters. So this is useful when you're obviously setting it up every time for yourself, because you know what length you need. I use 115 centimeters, and I always set up right at 115 centimeters every single time. If you have a trekking pole tent and it requires a certain number of certain centimeters to set up your trekking pole tent, you can use this to set your trekking pole up, and so that's very useful. The twist locks are great. I find them a little bit difficult when I'm setting up a trekking pole tent, because you have to twist the trekking pole to tighten things up. And then you have this jammed up in the top of your trekking pole tent, maybe this in the, through a loop in the bottom floor of your trekking pole, and you got to be twisting the shaft of the pole. That gets a little tricky. I tend to just pull it out, adjust the length a little bit, and then put it back in again. And that tends to work pretty well. And that's one of the things I found with these. I don't have any problem with the twist locks, but staying in place, but it gets a little bit fiddly when I'm trying to set up my trekking pole tent, but it's not a huge major concern. At the bottom here, like I said, you have a rock basket that keeps the trekking pole from jamming deep into a rock crack and then run the risk of like getting cranked and broken off. You can also buy wider, bigger snow baskets if you're trekking in the snow as well. And then the tips are actually replaceable too. So there's a carbide tip. I have, I bet at least 500 miles on these trekking poles, and they're not even close to being worn at this point in time. So let's talk a little bit about my experience with these trekking poles in 300 plus miles. I've done a number of through hikes of smaller trails in Pennsylvania with these trekking poles. I did the Black Forest Trail. I did the Lower Highlands Hiking Trail, and then I did the about probably 50 miles on I think it was the Allegheny Trail, and then a bunch of other side trips as well. And I've been trail running with these, using for trail running and using them for fast packing as well, and fast packing training. So I've got a bunch of miles on these things. And here's my kind of observations of use in the field. The only thing that I find most fiddly about these is setting up your trekking pole tent. Especially if you have a trekking pole tent where you're setting it up in uneven ground and you have to change the recommended length of the trekking pole. That can be a little fiddly at times. But again, it is most certainly not a major concern and a deal breaker. But it's something you should be aware of when you're going to buy these kind of trekking poles. The locks themselves, the twist locks, I was leery of the twist locks. I love the flick locks. Right now, I also have a set of Black Diamond aluminum trekking poles that use the flick locks, and I really like those. But these twist locks are more sleek. They look nicer, and I find it nicer. They don't get caught when I'm jamming things in my pack or whatever, but they stay locked in place really nicely. I don't find any difference between these twist locks and my flip locks for my Black Diamonds. As a matter of fact, quite honestly, my flip locks from the Black Diamonds, tend to allow the shaft to slide more, and yes, I do know how to adjust them, than these twist locks on my on my LT5s. So I have very little problems at all. The only times I've really had them like slide is when I really fell and just jammed down to catch myself from falling. And I did get some movement, but that's to be expected. But it wasn't like, something that just happened randomly. So they're very secure in terms of the twist locks. You have to be careful though, because just today I was pulling them out and I realized I hadn't, pulled them apart and cleaned out the inside. And I just typically blow out the dust and stuff inside. Haven't done that for a while, and that was messing with one of the twist locks. You do have to pull them apart, clean them out a little bit. I literally just blow out the insides of them just to get the dust and the grit out of them. And then that seems to be fine. I'm sure that, if you wanted to, you could probably rinse them with some water or something like that. But at any rate, you do have to maintain the twist locks a little bit more than the flip locks. But again, in all the miles I've been doing it, that's like the first time I ever had to deal with that. The weight of them makes them so easy to use in the field. One of the things I really like is that, for me personally, when I'm backpacking or fast packing or trail running, is that I like to not stow my trekking poles away when I'm not using them. I like to just carry them when I'm running or when I'm hiking really fast on a really nice cruisy section of trail. And because they're so light, I mean, they are noticeably lighter than my Black Diamond trekking poles. They're really high quality aluminum trekking poles. They were expensive trekking poles. They're significantly lighter, and that just makes it more of a joy to carry. And then also, if I have to carry them in my pack, it's not like I'm adding a lot of additional weight to my pack when I have to put these inside my pack. They, go down pretty small, which is nice. If you're packing them away to fly with them or something like that, you can push them down small, lock them in place, and you're basically all set to go. The grips are very comfortable when you're using them. I haven't found any trouble with that. And I've used them for not only hiking, but also running. And they are very durable. That's one thing I wanted to address here. I know that a lot of folks have talked about LT5s breaking. And yes, I would agree that carbon is more brittle than aluminum. It just is. I'm a fly angler, I'm a fisherman, I know about carbon. And one of the things I find that might be happening with folks with their carbon trekking poles happens a lot with fly rods and fishing rods in general, where you bruise the fibers on the blank in some way. Let's say that I hit my stick with somebody else's stick, right? Hey, dude, or I bang it off a rock for some reason. That can bruise the fibers in a carbon trekking pole or carbon fishing rod. And the next time any stress is put on there, that's where it would snap or break. And I feel like sometimes people might be kind of abusing their trekking poles a little bit by doing this with them. And maybe that's what causes some of the breaking. And again, if you get it jammed in a rock and you fall on it and it's carbon, it's going to snap. It doesn't flex very well. It doesn't flex as well as aluminum does. And so I get that too, and that's going to happen. And again, luckily with these trekking poles, you can replace sections. Doesn't necessarily help you when you're on trail though, and you need 2 trekking poles to set up your tent. But I don't feel like there's enough of a significant difference to be concerned with these trekking poles over my aluminum poles in most cases. Now I will say this, I was a little conservative this summer when I did the Tahoe Rim Trail because I knew there would be a lot of deep snow, and I knew that I'd have to rely on my trekking poles a lot in the snow, as well as my ice axe. And so in different circumstances, and what I did do is I said, hey, I know that carbon runs a little bit more risk of snapping and breaking, and so I'm going to take my aluminum trekking poles with me, and so that's what I did. But you know, again, would I do the same thing again? I think since I've done that, I probably would just take these anyway, because I missed my light trekking poles when I was out there doing that 170 miles on the Tahoe Rim Trail. But other than that, you know, I don't feel like there's like such a significant fear that I have of breaking these. And again, with the experience I have in Pennsylvania, I hiked the Laurel Highlands Trail, the whole trail. You know, I've backpacked a lot of other rocky areas, big steep uphills and craggy rock, steep downhills and craggy rock, and these have not failed yet. And that's some pretty, you know, serious abuse on a trekking pole. So I don't have any major concerns there. So overall, my experience with them, because of the fact they're so light, because they are so comfortable, because they function extremely well, I really like these trekking poles, and I would probably give them, you know, an A to possibly an A minus, because sometimes I have a hard time giving an A. So it's an A or an A minus with no significant concerns about these trekking poles. So that is my opinion on the LT5 trekking poles from Gossamer Gear. If you have some other story, you have a difference of opinion, you've got your 2 cents to throw in here, certainly do in the comments below. Be happy to talk, to listen, to comment on it. I'm always interested in getting more feedback, and it would be useful for the other viewers of this video to get a different perspective on the use of the LT5s. So again, backpackers, get out there and do some backpacking, do some hiking. Stop watching YouTube videos, unless they're my videos, and watch them all from start to finish. Later, backpackers.